What are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
Hey there, friends. Welcome back to another Legally Armed America video. I'm, of course, Paul Glasgow here, the one and only truth pimp, dealing you a vulgar display of logic and reason on a daily basis. Well. Once again, numbers come out that don't lie, that tell a story. Nobody wants to talk about them. Nobody on the left wants to talk about them because it points to a voting bloc that they desperately need, or at least that totally relies on them because they've made them into 21st century slaves. Right doesn't want to talk about it because they're going to get called racist. But I'm going to talk about it because it's true. First, guys, please go check out my friends CMMG. They have a brand new line of zeroed brand suppressors that they are releasing. These suppressors offer impressive sound suppression. They're very ruggedly built. And trust me, they are at a very affordable price. They are calling these the everyman suppressor, meaning that they are at a price point where they expect most everybody, every man at least, if you still know what men are, to be able to afford one. These suppressors are built in-house in America, in Missouri, at the CMMG plant. They're made with 17-4 stainless steel, and they feature a durable tubeless design, laser welded baffle stacks, and easy to clean nitride finish. Check them out. Go to CMMG. Again, CMMG. Don't forget to use my code FTATF and you will get 10% off these unbelievable suppressors along with anything else from CMMG. Again, FTATF is the discount code. Let's take a look at the numbers that shocked America when CNN published them a couple years ago. In Missouri, the firearm homicide death rate for black men was 59.42 per 100,000 compared to just 2.77 for white men. That's a gap of 56.65. Oh, let's ignore that number, right? In Michigan, it was 49 versus 1.5. In Louisiana, my state, it was 42.9 versus 4.1. Nationally, black men faced 29.2 deaths per 100,000 versus 2.1 for white men. Let's not forget about our Asian friends. How dangerous are they? 1.5. These aren't ancient statistics either, folks. Updated CDC and FBI data through 2023 and 2025 show the same pattern. Black male firearm homicide victimization still runs 8 to 13 times higher than white male rates, 46 to 50 per 100,000 versus 5.6. And here's the thing we're not supposed to talk about either. We're supposed to believe that white supremacy is the problem, right? We're supposed to believe that white people are killing all the black people. Those black homicide rates that are outrageous and light years ahead of white and Asian homicide rates, guess who they're killing? Their own people. It's black on black homicide. In fact, the white is the same way. The white, even though it's much lower, the white homicide is white on white. The whites are killing the black people. The public conversation usually stops at poverty or racism because, hey, let's throw more money at a situation where community organizers get fat and don't do anything. The data tells a deeper story, though. Massive differences in family structure, cultural norms around conflict, and, this is the hard one, genetic factors that influence how men respond to provocation. Today I'm going to talk about the cultural reality of fatherlessness and the biological reality of the so-called warrior gene. This is a good one. First, let's talk about the scale. Firearm homicide rates are overwhelmingly a young male phenomenon. CDC numbers show black males aged 15 to 34 drive the overwhelming majority of both victims and offenders. FBI uniform crime reports consistently place black offenders at 50 to 55% of known murder offenders, while they are only 13 to 14% of the population. Let's not forget about our Asian friends. By contrast, they have the lowest rates of any group, often 1 to maybe 2 per 100,000, even in cities with poverty. And white rates, of course, hover in the low single digits. Now, for our Asian friends, I'm kind of shocked that it's 1 to 2 per 100,000. I guess they're fighting over math problems. Now, this might surprise people, but most of these homicides are not robberies for money. Get this, they're expressive. They're arguments, perceived disrespect, gang retaliation, drug turf disputes. That points us to two intertwined drivers, culture and biology. That's a tough one to swallow. As I've covered in my books, my previous two books, Fatherlessness is a huge thing, has a massive direct impact to these young men being raised. In fact, it's the single strongest ecological predictor of violent crime at the community level. Today, 64 to 69% of black children live in single mother or father absent homes. For white children, the figure is 24%. That gap is not ancient history. From 1880 to 1960, black children were actually raised in two-parent homes at rates of 67 to 75%, higher than many people even realize, even under Jim Crow and higher poverty. The collapse happened in the 1960s. Non-marital births for black women went from 19 to 24% in the 1940s and 60s to 69% today. That's a 40% increase. Now, I've talked about this before. Incentives of paying somebody to keep baby daddy out the house is a huge problem. The federal government knows what they're doing. The best way to enslave somebody is to make them dependent on you. So make and force the baby daddy out of the house. Give the mother incentives to keep baby daddy out of the house. Also give the mother incentives to keep spitting kids out. And you got a beautiful thing, total dependency. The old AFDC program paid single mothers, but slashed or eliminated benefits if a father lived in the home and earned income. This created a literal financial penalty for marriage or cohabitation. The scissors effect where black male employment improved, but welfare rolls tied to single motherhood kept rising. 1996 welfare reform slowed the growth, but the cultural normalization of single motherhood, it was already locked in. It was already going to be a thing. Boys without resident fathers miss daily modeling of things like impulse control, conflict resolution, delayed gratification. Longitudinal studies show they enter adolescence with higher rates of aggression, delinquency, and poor self-regulation. And get this, at the community level, neighborhoods with high single parenthood have 100% higher violent crime and 200 to 255% higher homicide rates. Layer on top of that, the code of the street. You ain't gonna disrespect me. You step on my Jordans, we got a problem. The subcultural norms definitely point to respect being everything. Maybe a slight, a look, a bump. They can all demand immediate retaliation because appearing weak, according to them, would invite further attack. In fact, carrying a weapon is status and protection. Small arguments escalate to lethal force because violence is seen as the legitimate way to settle scores. These norms are self-reinforcing. High father absence means more unsupervised boys absorbing street values. High violence leads to more gun carrying, which makes every dispute more deadly. Most black homicides are intraracial and retaliatory, exactly what the code predicts. White communities also have rough subculture, but they are less dense, less lethal, and less concentrated in these same ways. Now I'm going to slap some biology on you. You ever heard of the MOA gene? Maybe the warrior gene is what you heard it called? This gene regulates the enzyme that breaks down serotonin and dopamine in the brain. Low activity variants like MAOA-L produce less enzyme. The result, higher levels of these neurotransmitters, resulting in more aggressive reactivity to threats and weaker prefrontal braking on impulses. This biases the brain towards reaction aggression, quick, hot-tempered responses to provocation. There was actually a study back in 2002 that showed that the low activity variant of the MAOA gene, if you couple that with being maltreated or mistreated in the family, in the home, the boys had dramatically higher rates of antisocial behavior, conduct disorder, and violent convictions as adults later on in life. Mistreated boys with the higher activity version were far more resilient. They didn't respond as negatively as the low activity variants of the warrior gene. So you might be asking, well, where does all that come from? This is going to be a tough one for some of them. This is a dirty word to a lot of people. Genetics. You're born with this. Allele frequencies differ by ancestry. The low activity 3R allele is found in roughly 49 to 59% of men of African descent versus 34 to 40% of European descent. Because males only have one chromosome, the population level effect is direct. Getting too sciencey for you? I'm going to simplify this because this matters. It really does. The MAOA gene or the warrior gene is located on the X chromosome, one of the sex chromosomes. Females have 2 X chromosomes. Males have 1 and 1 Y chromosome. This means that males have only 1 copy of any gene of the X chromosome. This is the one they inherit from their mother. They have no second copy to potentially, quote, cancel out or modify the effect of that chromosome. Whatever allele a male inherits on his single X chromosome, whether it's the high activity or the low activity, that's the one he expresses fully. There is no averaging or dominance from a second allele. Females have 2 X chromosomes. So they have the chance of that one X canceling out that other X, or at least moderating that other X. Females are mosaics. Some cells express the maternal allele, some the paternal. This creates more variability and often weaker or inconsistent effects for X-linked traits like this warrior gene in females. Outside of the women who get onions on their burger and then raise hell and tear the whole Burger King down, you don't usually see women popping caps in each other's asses like you do the men all the time. So males have a higher baseline genetic risk for impulsive aggression, plus far higher rates of the exact environmental trigger, meaning fatherless homes, maltreatment, and all that activates this warrior gene in the worst possible ways. The result is a thicker extreme tale of young men who escalate minor conflicts lethally. Exactly the pattern we see in all this homicide data. Now, none of this means that every single man with one of the low activity warrior genes is going to grow up and be a murderer. Most men with the low activity warrior gene, even with adversity, never kill anyone. Positive environments, stable two-parent homes, strong supervision, cultural norms that reject retaliation. They buffer that risk. But to ignore the genetic component is just stupid. Like you purposely are trying not to find the problem when you ignore it because it's uncomfortable to talk about. Ignoring the genetic component and the cultural reality of fatherlessness has produced decades of failed interventions focused on only poverty or systemic racism. They don't focus on the kid being born with these low activity warrior genes. The data from the CNN table that I started with through the latest CDC and FBI numbers are clear. The gap is real, persistent, and it's explained by the powerful interaction of culture, family breakdown, and biology. Understanding all of this is honestly the first step towards solutions that actually work, like rebuilding two-parent norms, challenging a street code retaliation, targeting the small subset of chronic violent actors. The numbers here don't lie. It's scientific. Trust the science. The real question here is whether or not we're willing to, or brave enough, to ask these questions and to focus on this problem. Don't look at me for what to do. I'm just telling you what the problem is. I don't have the solution, but at least I'm brave enough to acknowledge and look into what the real problem is so that we can start to look for the solution. Right now, nobody's looking. Guys, if you liked the video, please hit that like button. Make sure you are subscribed. Comment down below. What are your thoughts? Do you see the same things? Fatherless homes. We've all seen the negative effects of it. And look, just like I state in my books, I'm not saying that everyone who doesn't have a dad living at home grows up to be a murderer or a mass murderer or something like that. No one's ever implied that. But the numbers don't lie. The higher percentage of those people almost always wind up being from fatherless homes. Don't forget, guys, if you're looking for a book to educate yourself and to educate the idiots out there who can't think for themselves regarding mass shootings, go to damnliars.net. Again, damnliars.net, and get my brand new book, Damn Liars.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.